All right, guys, we're back. Good to see you today. My name is Patrick Montgomery with Innovative Selling Partners. Hope you are having a wonderful day. We are going to be talking about internal alignment today as it relates to your company. Hold on one second. Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure audio was good there. I was having some audio issues earlier, but yeah, we are talking about full holistic alignment throughout your organization as it relates to communication, internal communications, and actually pushing that out through your sales channels so we can appropriately and effectively manage your opportunities. It's really important that we align appropriately with your executive team. And so think of this internally. You have your executive team, your C-suite, and they have their mission, their goals, their core values, the passion of the team. And then from there out, you have to have an effective message internally throughout each level of your department to ultimately, so everyone is speaking the same internal value-based language. And we talk about it a lot, but that communication gets broken down and fractured throughout your business channels. And then finally, the last people to get the news is your sales teams, a lot of times, unfortunately. And then after that, who gets the message? It's the customer. And so that message of passion, of your goals, your mission, your core values gets broken down and watered down over time. And before you know it, your salespeople are even talking negative about your product and solution to the customers. And then you have a negative, a vein of negative culture going through your sales channels. And being an individual contributor for 20 years, I know it. I've always championed myself as a optimist and a very positive person when it comes to product and leadership. I want to stay positive about leadership. I want to stay positive about product, regardless of how toxic the environment might be. And every business has a bit of this toxicity trying to break down your doors throughout each department. And so we combat a lot of that with these like culture issues and stuff, but it doesn't work. We have to have holistic and systemic change in the way we communicate internally at the organization. And it starts from the top down. And it takes a lot of effort and work and commitment and discipline over a long period of time. And we can't rest on our laurels when it comes to this. And so when we are going in and talking, and we've learned so much about doing these discoveries with the executive teams, the C-suite, we're going in to learn and align with them. And we do this with our customers. We want to align with your goals, with your core values, with your mission, with your passion. Sometimes we can't do that. That's okay. And we want to do business with like-minded organizations. But we see in a lot of times we market our team, Innovative Selling Partners, as sales training for self-aware companies. And it's okay if you're not, and you understand that you're not. That is actually being self-aware. You don't know what you don't know. So if we can understand, at least get a little humility and understand that we need to change, to grow, and to evolve, and we need to keep growing. We cannot rest on our laurels. That is being self-aware. So as long as you have that little crack where the light can get in, you can change and grow and become the company that you've always wanted to become. And it starts with the executive team. So as we're aligning on strategy and goals with the executive team, we've learned so much. And I was in a meeting with an executive last week, a CEO of an organization, and they have 30 salespeople, and we're going to be training their salespeople. He said, I asked him, what are your core values for your company? And he said, well, we have to pull up the website to look at that. And I said, well, what's your mission? And, well, he said, let's just pull up the website. And I said, oh my gosh, like, I was thinking, like, that's not a good sign if you don't know your mission, your goals, your core values. We should have this memorized throughout the organization. We don't have to say it on, daily internal calls, and we don't have to be, you know, um, a cult about it. But we should all be driven from the same values, the same goals, the same mission, and because ultimately this is what we're doing for our customers. We want to help our customers grow and evolve, and we want to be aligned with their core goals, mission, and uh, goals, their core values. And so it's really important that we understand that, because we want to have I say we as executives and leaders, we want to understand what our goals, our mission, our core values are, because we don't want to lose sight of the mission and the passion that we have about solving our customers' problems and how awesome our solution is. So think in terms of you're the leader, how passionate and obsessed are you about your solution, your product, your people, your leadership team, your individual contributors, your marketing team, your IT team, your product team, your HR team? How passionate are you about communicating effectively throughout the channels from the top down at your organization? If you're not effective in this, you might be passionate about it, but you're not effective in it, you're not going to get that bottom up communication either. And that's where you see this huge fractured space. And that's a real great breeding ground for a lot of ego and toxicity and micromanagement, where you create just this muddled environment of despair or with your employees that are trying to get out. And that's what we don't want. And we don't want to take great sellers and turn them into apathetic sellers about our organization. We want passionate, fired up people that are relaying a specific message of value to our customers, not only our customers, but internally as well. And we don't want robot drones, right? We want this to be true and authentic. How can we have people being true and authentic about our products and solution internally, speaking that same value-based language internally between departments effectively, and with everyone speaking the same value-based language? You can do that, and there's a process for that through every department. Not one great sales leader that I worked under used to call it just something like breaking through silos or tearing down silos. There's these walls up between each department at your company, and everyone is speaking a different language, and none of it is of value. And so it's about communication, it's about language, it's about effective communication. And we have to make sure that we're relaying the message throughout all of the departments. And this is before we're even talking about opportunity management here with sales, right? The sales is a lot of times, unfortunately, and I'm a huge advocate for the individual contributor in the sales team, is that they're the last people to get the message on a lot of this stuff. Everything's a secret. So sales doesn't find out and start pre-selling or selling futures or whatever. But there's a fear of giving too much information to salespeople. And it's because we don't trust our employees. It's just straight up, why are you hiring? Why do you have leaders that have trust issues? Is a key thing. And if you're seeing micromanagement, if you're implementing micromanagement, you got to ask yourself, why do I have a hard time trusting people? This is something that might not be able to be solved personally. And a lot of these trust issues stem from trauma, childhood trauma, and mommy and daddy issues. So unless we're like that self-aware, and we can't trust people, and we can't trust our leadership, we can't trust our direct reports, we can't trust our colleagues, can we really be an effective leader at building and providing value for our employees and our customers? I'm not sure. So, I had a sales leader ask me once, our salespeople are they seem real narcissistic. And we're really worried because they're real pushy. And these guys were good salespeople. I'm telling you, like, they probably were a little too pushy, but, they knew they spoke a great, very uh, good acumen with leadership in the enterprise and strategic space. They could talk the talk, but their leadership was worried that they're too pushy. They lost a couple big deals based on it, and the customers said, "Well, we would have moved forward if it wasn't for this guy pushing us too hard." And he was worried about a vein of kind of this when the narcissism was the big hot topic for 6 months, probably a year ago. And so he had asked me, can we train empathy into our sales teams? And I had to kind of go to the drawing board and think, can empathy be trained? That's an interesting topic in itself. And, I think it can be practiced. I think practically you can do things intentionally to change. So if you have an intention behind your action, who is to say that that's not good? So, for instance, if you have a really rotten person, a bad guy, and he all of a sudden has an epiphany that I want to be good. If he does good things, says good words, and has good actions, is he not good now? And if he does that consistently over time, is he not good? That would be a good person now. And if he practices that, he can use his past to have compassion and empathy on others. So if we can get to a point personally, professionally, and with humility and compassion, I think you can be an empathetic seller, even if you're, have expressing narcissistic traits. So we put some modules together for them and did a empathetic selling and communication and listening module for this company, and it seems to be working. And the key thing is when we're meeting with their teams weekly, we're asking empathetic based questions to get cues on growth around these topics, especially communication as it relates to the customer. But if you have any insights on any of these topics and want to jump up on the live and talk now live with me, I'm more than happy to have you jump up. Or if you can't request to be on the live, send me, and you want to be on the live, send me a direct message and I can invite you. More than happy, and would be love to have some company up here. I kind of had an easy day, afternoon 30. I had a ton of stuff to do this morning. And so I was going live on some other platforms and decided, you know what, on those platforms, Instagram, TikTok, I love them, Facebook, all that. I'm working directly and talking to the individual contributors typically. So I love that I am an advocate for the individual contributor and the sales teams that I train. I love that. Now, LinkedIn is more of a place where I speak with sales leaders, sales leadership, executive leadership. And, this is where I talk to the bosses of the people that I train, quite frankly. And, I love being that bridge that fills that gap between the individual contributor and management. It's such an important part of running your business and growing your business is stepping outside, slowing down the vacuum, turning the vacuum off, letting the dust settle, and getting the outside help we need to ensure that we're seeing things for exactly what they are. There's a word for that. It's called humility. We can see things exactly for what they are. We can look in the mirror and see ourselves for exactly what we are. That is what I call humility. So, and I love the topic of ego, humility. I just love it. I love, figuring out where I am in that spectrum of my ego. And I look at it kind of linear. I talk about this all the time. It's so important though. I love mapping. You don't know where you're going. Excuse me, real quick. You don't know where you're going if you don't know where you're at. So in every situation, it's like, where am I? Right? And even on your ego, like, where are you linearly? Right? If that's a spectrum, and humility is the dead center point to that, and to the left is deflated ego. I feel worse than I actually am. And to the right of that is I feel like I'm better than I am. Like we can't see things clearly. We're thinking we're better than we actually are, or we're thinking we're less than we actually are. That's like it's difficult. And it's driven by past traumas, experiences, anxieties, and fears. All this stuff that gets in the way from us being the best version of ourselves for ourselves, our family, our business, our leaders, our customers. But if we can kind of zero in on that middle point in our ego where we don't see things for worse than what they are, and we don't see ourselves for better than we are, we can be right there in that sweet spot of what I call humility. It's really important to drive yourself back into that space where you're seeing things for exactly where they are. And in a huge corporate environment, yeah, the C-suite, the VPs, the CROs, the CIOs, the CTOs, the CMOs, all your different leaders, excuse me. And you got the, director level, then you have your middle management, and then you have, your senior people, and then you have your individual contributors. It's throughout all that environment, which can be sometimes organized chaos. It's hard to see where we are individually as an employee, as a leader throughout your organization, but as a company as well. It's hard to see the actual vacuum because we're inside of it. And so it's critical, like we do here, like great companies that hire us and hire our competitors, they are seeking outside help to kind of dissect that internal infrastructure and ecosystem of chaos. Because I am coming in and I am not a part of the vacuum. I'm not in the vacuum. I can see the vacuum. I can see clearly things for exactly how they are. So it's a humility based approach. So we're coming at your business from an angle of humility and driving that out from the inside out, or what I call the top down, from the executive suite all the way down to the individual contributors, so that everyone's speaking that same internal value based language, and externally from every department out, smashing down those silos, that the customers are hearing that from everyone at your organization, that same value based language coming from the top passionate level of that executive suite. So important. Now, this is before anything happens with opportunity management. We don't even assume you don't even have a customer at this point, right? So we want to start the internal culture and communication internally over prior to getting this message out to the customers, because the product information internally is fractured. The goals, the product roadmap, how you guys are communicating is so fractured internally. We don't want to start, telling the customers more bad messaging. So once we fix this internally, we can all be speaking the same value-based language, and now that can go out to all of the channels for support, the SEs, your solutions or sales engineers, your whole pre-sales team, your marketing team, your product team, your implementation team, and most importantly, your sales team. It's not most importantly, equally as important, but we want to make sure that we're conveying that passion, that mission, these core values, and aligning with the customer's needs and goals. Super, super important. And now you brought companies in that align with your goals, values, missions, core values, and it creates right out of the box just better alignment. And it's a great strategy to have. You can steal this and try to implement that within the vacuum today. You can present this to your current outboard sales training or training organization, and you'll be more profitable, drive more revenue, and have happier employees for it. This is what we start off with in our Align 360 modules. We take about a 3-hour internal, in-depth, deep dive and dissection of your business with the executive team right out of the gate. Because if we don't understand that, we don't align. We need to align with your values, just like you would with your customers, what I'm talking about. And so now we get to the topic of more opportunity management. Now everyone's talking the same sales-based language. Your marketing, your IT, your product, your HR, your implementation, your sales team. Everyone's speaking the same internal value-based language now. Now you can start driving really good and aligned leads. And so your marketing team, your SQLs, your MQLs, everything will start funneling in. And this is where you start to understand and build a really diverse funnel. So you want the small, medium, big, enterprise, strategic, whales, all in your funnel. And so you can get them to the right people that handle them in the different segments of your organization. These are still pretty cold, but they're more aligned leads now. And so as we are converting these leads to opportunities, that's when the opportunity management starts. It's real basic sales 101, sales processes 101, right? So, a lot of times, boom, you get the initial meeting and, you go into this discovery, and it's a lot of, basic discovery. So we need to start here. We need to think differently at the very get-go of going into your opportunities. And we call this stage leading with expertise. So this is kind of a pre-discovery that we have to do as individual contributors to make sure we are spearheading this project appropriately. And I like to reframe sales not only one as helping customers, but we want to make sure that we look at our position in this environment a little differently. I like to look at salespeople as project managers more than anything, because you are managing this massive project, especially if you're in enterprise and strategic sales, and the implications are huge. This can mean millions of dollars in revenue for your organization, or wasted millions of hours of time for your organization, for your company. And so we want to go into this knowing what we're doing, and a lot of it, and again, this is real basic. It should be at this point, depending on what segment you're in sales, whether it's SMB, strategic, or mid-market, strategic, or enterprise. Excuse me, getting them all mixed up there. You want to make sure that you're leveraging your language, your communication, and your research appropriately now. And so you get these leads that have come in through your new value-based language initiative throughout your organization. And now leads start funneling in. You start rebuilding the funnel. And also the long game too here. Think of it as far as, accurately forecasting deals too. I just want to, touch on that a bit, because, not only does this change culture and align values and bring in better leads, but this allows your organization short-term and long-term opportunities for forecast accuracy. And that's mega important because we need to ensure that we are meeting our internal goals, our numbers, our quotas, and we need to make sure these are attainable. And so, as we're doing this process, the ultimate outcome, from a process perspective, is that your organization is forecasting accurately for the short term, the week, month, quarter, year, and maybe multi-year. And there's platforms and solutions out there that you can tie into these strategies and processes that make that easier as well. So, there's some companies that we've partnered with to help that process out to be able to do short to long-term accurate forecasting. But this falls into that same culture of how can we be more transparent, more visible, and have better clarity on everything as an organization. So that's part of that as well, and that's a longer term, the end game, not full end game. The full end game is, post sales follow up and how we can continue to expand into these deals that you closed. But getting back into the opportunity management and leading with expertise, it's really important that we're setting our individual contributors, our sales reps, our AEs up to be able to understand what it takes to be able to lead with expertise. So your guys, they've been trained on your product, your internal, and some of that's changing now, but they know your product, they know your value proposition, and hopefully they're able to relay at least a base level message on that, right? So we want to look at ourselves like a master in our domain, like I'm a master in my domain of sales training and getting effective change and transformation and increased revenue out of sales teams. That's my expertise. Now I have to be an expert in your domain. So your individual contributors, they have to be an expert in your domain. And now the expectation is that they be a master in your customer's domain. And this should be sales 101. But we're seeing a huge number of customers just skipping, kind of walking by this first initial critical phase where 90% of the deal is closed in this phase. So why are we missing it? It takes work, it takes foresight, it takes a lot of research. It takes knowing, and mapping customer environments. So a lot of the time and energy we need has to be focused in this first phase of leading with expertise. And we're seeing that reps are walking right through this, and companies aren't expecting or holding them accountable for that deep level of leading with expertise before discovery. Discovery hasn't even happened yet. And then how to speak through those conversations as an expert in discovery. Those are the first two phases of the sales. Those are first two stages of the sales process, LWE and the discovery. So a lot of guys are skipping by the leading with expertise stage, and then they are not talking and having an effective communication strategy through discovery because they missed out and walked through that first phase of leading with expertise. And now they're bringing in your SE, and then it turns into a big product dump, and then you just look like the same competitor out there. Everyone's just a sales guy in the SE, and it's just everyone's rolling their eyes going, oh my God, what's going on here? They don't want it. Your customers hate it. It's waste their time, and they're not going to close business with you. Your product isn't good enough to close business on its own. You need a great alignment, and you need to be an expert in your customer's domain, period. Not period. There's a lot that goes into that. So there is a lot that goes into that, but you do need to be not only a customer in your own domain, you got to know your shit. You got to be an expert in your customer's domain, full stop. You got to be the expert that your customers need and deserve. It's so critical, so important. And if anyone wants to jump up on the live and discuss some of this stuff with me, I would be more than happy to have you just jump up here live with me now. I don't know if anyone's on the live, but be great if anyone wants to jump in. If anyone has any questions about internal alignments, communication strategies internally, or the opportunity management process, specifically talking about the LWE, or leading with expertise, and the discovery phase. And so there's a lot you can do in the leading with expertise phase of the sales process. Like I said, 90% of the sales process is completed within this period, within this stage. 90%, right? And that's you being the expert in their domain. They could have a PhD, they could have went to medical school, they could be an expert whiz in coding, they could be the IT expert that's been managing, global manufacturing plants for the last 50 years. And now you're coming in and you're expected to be an expert in their domain, maybe in less than a week. Can you do it? I think you can. I think there's a way to become that expert and understand, be able to talk the customer's language before you meet in their initial meeting. And it takes time, energy, and research. It's either put the time in now to do this, or don't close the deal, lose out on millions of dollars for your organization, a huge commission check for yourself and your family, and still spend all of that time trying to fix what you missed here earlier because you didn't have your shit together, you weren't prepared, and you were not an expert in your customer's domain. So we take care of that in the upfront first. We put the time in early. And what does that look like? That understands the complete makeup of the history of your company's, of your customer's organization, where they came from, who they are, their story, everything about them. Takes reading. We got to jump on and read. You can't listen to an audio book to give you research about a customer, a potential prospect that you're working with. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to pull up their 10K. You got to pull up their history. You got to pull up their businesses they own. You got to understand their leadership changes throughout the time. You got to be able to speak intelligently on this stuff. And it's putting the time in early to really get a great understanding and to be that expert in your customer's domain. Give me a second here. And so as we're doing that, we want to really map everything effectively. Remember, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you're at. So we need to know where we're at. Who are the critical components at your customer's business? And it's never too early to bring in critical titles and leaders from your customer into your meetings. It's never too early. There was a couple times where I had legal come into a discovery call, or an initial meeting, excuse me. So we had an initial meeting, and I invited their legal team, their IT team, their executive team, and the director of operations, who had contacted us to get the information. And I had shot him an email and said, hey, I'm going to have some leaders on this call from my team. I wanted to get your permission to invite some of your leaders on the call as well. Would that be okay? And who should I invite? Right. And he gave me some names that I wasn't going to invite, but then I invited some other people as well. So, and I had their legal team on there, but what I did is, it's really important to make those connections and alignments from your customer to your organization. So we brought our legal team in. He brought their legal team, showed up. IT showed up. IT showed up. We had one of the CRO or CTO show up. We had our technology guys show up, and we started creating connections immediately. So, and that a lot of times happens with, we're creating alignment on titles, relationships, We are creating alignment on values. So this, if I do have a slide, even on an initial meeting, which rarely happens, I will make it a point to have, the mission, the values, the core values, the goals of our organization, and make a point to tell them and communicate that we're looking to partner with companies that align with our value and what we do as an organization. And it's really important that we have that before we start looking at, what problems we can solve, this, that, and the other. Because if we're not going to align on that core values, mission, and goals, we probably aren't going to align and be a good fit, to implement, to deploy, to service that customer. And it's going to be kind of like butting heads. Now, a lot of times you can use this as a sales strategy, and companies respect that, and you can align on their goals and values and mission. And it's even if it appears as if you would have a difficult time aligning with them. And I'm not talking about politics or anything like that. We just want to make sure we have the same business initiatives and understanding of what it's going to be like to do business with each other. And we are an aggressive company, and once you're a customer, we have an aggressive approach at implementing change and growth and bringing in revenue for your organization. So are you ready for that? That's the key thing, is like really opening up the door for the customer to say, are you ready to do business with a company with these types of core values and mission and goal? Because we're going to tear it up for you. And now, and we're getting a little beyond the leading with expertise, but we want to make sure we're leading with that. But you want to set the stage for how you guys are, what type of partner you are going to be. And you're giving examples and demonstrating firsthand about your knowledge and what kind of, partner you're going to be for your customers. And this is, it's really about not only aligning and really wanting to do well and create massive value for your customers, but this is what sets you apart from the very beginning. While this company, they know our business so well. Like, we brought these other guys in, they could barely even talk our language. And so out of the gate, you're changing the way they buy. You're changing the buyer's experience. And now their expectation is really high for doing business with organizations because of you in the process and in the strategies that you've taken to show that value and the value you're going to be for their company. And this is leading with expertise, the first stage in the sales process. So it's really great, and you can see the impact in real time that you have for your customers just having these communications and correspondence with them. I might have to jump off here. I'm starting to lose my voice here. But it's been really good. So we talked about executive alignment from the top down communication, creating that value-based language throughout your organization. So throughout all of your departments are speaking the same value-based language out through the sales channels, and then having that external value-based language for your organization, communicating an effective message to your customers. And then we talked about the first couple stages at real high level in the sales process, from leading with expertise and the deep level of time and effort it takes on the front end of the sales process to differentiate yourself, and then into discovery, so you can have that business and sales and leadership acumen and language in the discovery stage. So that's all we're going to talk about today. I'm going to start doing these lives more often. It was really great to be here. I'm not even sure if anyone saw or watched, but good content regardless. Thank you all so much, and have a wonderful day. And feel free to reach out, email me at pwm at innovativesellingpartners.com. You can DM me on Instagram or look us up at innovativesellingpartners.com, and more than happy to have a conversation with you one-on-one how we can help you meet your revenue and growth goals still this year. It's not too late. Everyone have a great day. Peace.